Fans of a Horus, Hearsay and Heresy, welcome back to Legion of Cheese for another episode of speculation. And I'm joined again by the indomitable Jay from Legion of Two. How are you doing, Jay?
I'm all good, mate. How's you? It's been so long since we've talked.
An absolute veritable age, less than a week.
I think this will be the quickest we've ever got to these episodes out.
Absolutely. Well, you remember what I said partway through last episode? It might last as long as a ripe pear in a fruit bowl. Well, I think that's come true.
Yeah, I could make a joke about Liz Truss and a lettuce, but I'm not gonna,
Those lettuces have some staying power, don't they?
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, goodness me. What a week. Well, not even quite... Well, yeah, is it? No, it's not quite a full week since we recorded the last episode. And it's just been non-stop heresy action for the last few days, hasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's putting it mildly.
And not for planned reasons either. What we're going to talk about, the big ticket news, which I'm sure all of our viewers are more than aware of, is a set of images sneaked their way onto the incredible edible internet of the rumoured or new starter set for Horus Heresy, which we speculated on in the last episode.
Yeah, and then everyone was like, is it fake? Is it real? It's really badly pixelated. And as usual, people are like, how can somebody in 2025 take a picture so poorly? Still baffled by that. We know it's real, and I'm still baffled by that.
There is an assumption there that everybody is in possession of an up-to-date smartphone with a very high-grade inbuilt camera.
Fair enough, enough. But this looks like it was taken on the very first version of a camera phone for a Nokia 3310.
It's not the best. I mean, it's not... I've seen worse, but it's not the best. So what happened was, I think this was Tuesday or overnight Tuesday, Monday, Tuesday. When I woke up on Tuesday morning, my inbox on Instagram was full of messages of, "Hi, Leaky, have you seen these?" And yeah, images. So there is a new starter set, and it is called Saturnine. Yeah, there's a word steeped in mystery, if there ever has been one in Heresy and 40k.
Yeah. I think in the last episode, we actually did say that if it was going to be called something, we did mention the whole concept of the term Saturnine and exosuits and...
And well, it's all come to be. And there was a rumour that was circulated by Chapter Master Valrak last year, I think, of a coming new box, Iron Warriors versus Salamanders, new Dreadnought, and re-imaged, Saturnine Terminators, as people call them, but what they really are, it's the 1988 Exomarine, the first ever released Terminator. And that's been re-imaged, and yeah, very much it has. And all these things have come true, and more.
Mm-hmm.
Gosh, what a day it was. So a front and back image was leaked, wasn't it? And it looked... it was funny, wasn't it? Because it looked like it was in the back of a untidy van. And there were a couple of random shoes hanging around. And this person also had at least 2 copies of Saturnine.
Yeah, that was... Yeah, it honestly looked like someone had either picked it up off the back of a lorry or was doing a UPS run and decided to have a Duke and saw Saturnine, was like, I know what this is. It isn't just some random dude who's never heard of Warhammer. This guy was like, I know what this is, so I'm stealing it.
Yeah, and this appeared on Facebook Marketplace, didn't it? Under an interesting listing of new. That was how it was being sold. It was being sold as new.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But yeah, faster than a bunch of Alpha Legionnaires saying, "I am Alfarius," the images have got across the Heresy fansphere. And yeah, everyone saw them. I mean, the moment I saw them, I didn't have to look at them that long before I thought, yeah, this is a real Games Workshop product. You know, you can tell it's got the polish and the style of the current Heresy stuff, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's definitely not one of those people who were like, is this AI generated? No, you could tell a mile away that it had a lot of the hallmarks of the standard 2.0, now I suppose 3.0 Heresy box art, certain script, certain font, positioning, that kind of stuff, you could tell it was one a mile away.
It was, yeah. It was like, well, there's a leak out there and people were speculating. Well, there was a whole torrent of discussion around this, ranging from people speculating as to what was in the box to who had leaked it. And then quite quickly, the speculation started getting into worlds it being done deliberately by Games Workshop.
Mm-hmm.
And that was because of quite an extraordinary occurrence on the Horus Hearsay website. And this happened, I think it was as we moved into Tuesday afternoon UK time, they took what at first glance looked to be the image or sections of the images from the leaks and reposted them onto their website with a variety of tongue-in-cheek comments, much like the preceding, teasers that we'd discussed in our previous episode on this. And immediately the jungle drums got going over that as to it being some sort of conspiracy that Games Workshop had deliberately leaked the images.
Yeah. Personally, I had never bought that. I knew actually some people who did. They were like, this is a way to drum up hype. And I was like, no, it's not. Workshop will never steal their own thunder by leaking this because they want the pomp, they want the ceremony and the fanfare of a big reveal,
Yeah.
So they would never inadvertently do this because it steals their thunder. Because at this point in time, Dallas was still going ahead.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they wouldn't steal their own thunder.
You wouldn't have thought so, would you?
Well,
However,
I've never seen them do it.
No, I know. Well, I hadn't either. No, and I'd also never seen them republish leaked images. They've occasionally made comments on, the jokes around potato cam TM, but they never republished leaked images, and this was a first. So that for me made me very suspect that they were doing it deliberately.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I noticed, when I was reading discussion around it and engaging in some discussion, I noticed that a few people were saying it's not the same images. I thought, what? And to start with, you see a lot of that sort of stuff in leak image discussion. But then I read one comment, one reply, and they said it again. So I thought, okay, I'm going to go back and look. And I did a side-by-side comparison of the Mark II guy. Yeah, fantastic. Mark, we've been talking about this so far. Mark II plastic Space Marines are here. Whoa!
Yeah, I am so chuffed. It's definitely a redesign of the original one, and if we get a chance, we'll either talk about it now or we'll talk about it in a different episode. But we once mentioned that when they did the original Mark III versus Gen 2 Mark III, which is a strange thing to say, the plating, remember we discussed how the plating no longer overlaps?
Yeah,
They're flat and flush. This is following that.
It is, yeah. I just forget when we said that.
I think we were talking about Mark III. I think that was the episode where we had the Mark III loving,
Yeah, Mark III Sensible, yeah. That was a couple of years ago now. Yeah, so fantastic Mark II's here. But yeah, I got the image of the Mark II Veteran and I did a side-by-side comparison between the League and what Games Workshop would put on Hearsay. And the one on Hearsay was of a notably high resolution, so much so that there's no amount of AI tomfoolery or photoshopping that could have taken the leak and derived it into what they posted.
Yeah.
And that was the case for the Saturnine Terminator, the book picture, and then like the age warning, and then the product warning text.
I know what they've done.
They've recreated the image.
No, well, I'll go full conspiracy. I'll do a better one. What they've done is obviously they've woke up, they've got into head office, they've turned around and went, okay, somebody stole our thunder. We've cancelled Dallas. We'll knock it back now. We've put up the post about Istvan. We'll knock it back a week. Right. Who in the office, from the tea lady to the CEO, who has the crappiest phone? And they went and found Jimmy, Jojo Shabadoo, and they're like, let me have your phone. And they went and grabbed a box of Saturnine and recreated the photos, except in slightly better quality.
Yeah. It's better enough quality to make it not look rubbish. For me, that made me very suspicious of what was going on, whether or not they did it deliberately. However, we've since seen more images, which I've not seen widely circulated publicly, which lead us to believe that it is indeed a leak.
Yeah, definitely someone has had a 5-finger discount.
That's right, yeah.
I don't know how. Obviously, this box doesn't exist, so this was going to an influencer or something to do what they did in 2.0, where they give it out to half a dozen or 2 dozen influencers. You paint them up, and they're going to be shown off on the community website.
Given the involvement of the mop, I'm not even sure it's anything to do with an influencer. I think this might be someone who half-inched it from a warehouse.
Ah.
Yeah.
If it's already in warehouses, then...
Or a shipping point, something like that. And
yeah.
They've known enough to know that this was kind of like hot property and not released, and something where they could make a cool $500 a box. Although, later reduced to $250. I don't know if any were sold.
Yeah.
I know the Facebook marketplace listing got taken down sometime on, I think, late on Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, we don't know exactly what happened there, but I'm no longer of the opinion it was done deliberately. Remember in our last episode when we were talking about anti-marketing
Yeah.
and how it can go very wrong? This is an example of how that can happen. They've already created this ambiguity and sense of like mischievousness around it.
Yeah.
That when this happened, and then with how they reacted to it, although they've rolled with it and they've reacted quite well, it still fed into that. So I don't know. They've not commented publicly whether or not they did it deliberately. I don't think they did. I don't think they will, but it does have that ambiguity. So gosh, that is the first time I've ever seen Games Workshop Marketing reproduce leaked images or even attempted to recreate them, which is extraordinary. But I think they rolled with it and tried to make the best of an awkward situation.
Yeah. It's interesting how they've handled it. It's very different from how they've done it in previous iterations. When Araman from Prospero was leaked, they decided to, to quote Captain Price from Call of Duty, you want to take out an oil fire, you put a bigger explosion beside it and it sloughs the flame. They showed off Karn from 40K. When they leaked the Gene Stealer standard bearer by putting him in the cabinet in the Warhammer gallery because somebody forgot to take it back to the production office. They just had Duncan do a comedy video about how it was put in the wrong place.
Yeah.
I expected them just to go ahead and show it off, if I'm honest with you, rather than maintaining the hearsay approach, because they, you'd think they'd want to capitalize on the fact it's been leaked and hit the narrative from their own point of view rather than what they've continued with. What they've continued with is still fair enough. I'm enjoying seeing what they're doing with it. But because it's lost a bit of its thunder, I'm wondering, is that why, for example, Dallas was cancelled and they knocked the release back by a week? Because instead of it being Thursday the 22nd, it's now back to Thursday the 29th, I think, for us. 30th for...
How do you know it's been gone back a week? How have you worked that out?
Well, Dallas was the 22nd. Yeah. And I think, personally, that was going to be the big reveal for all the hearsay stuff. We were going to get some sort of CG trailer.
Yeah.
And that was going to be the big reveal. But the minute this seems to have happened, now I don't know the precise time frame, but it almost seems like this got leaked, Dallas got cancelled, and then we got the Istvan T- 399 hours, all within the span of like an hour of each other.
Yeah. Oh, and so are you saying the Istvan T- 399 hours, that put it 1 week later?
It did, yeah. If you counted 399 hours from the moment that post went up, it falls to roughly the 29th or 30th of May, give or take time frame, time zones, etc.
Interesting.
So I think in that way, that's how they're trying to recapture the narrative. And then also, I suppose, on a random side tangent.
Why would you take it out of you? Right, this is a big summer box.
Yeah.
Dallas Open, it's like their equivalent of Warhammer Fest now.
Yeah.
Why would you take it out? Why would you cancel a preview?
Because the preview's already there. Somebody has stole their thunder. That's what I was saying about somebody has basically stole their thunder and they're taking their toys and they've went home. But now they're trying to recapture the narrative, recapture the glory. They're twisting it to suit their own means so that it falls on a Heresy Thursday, technically. And that's going to be the big reveal. So, I think it's just about how they want to show it off on their terms, not because somebody has half-inched a load of boxes and has spoiled it. So
I'm still not quite getting the whole moving thing. I mean, I see what you're saying about the moving the date and the Warhammer community post. Clearly, that's the date it gives. I don't know. Maybe it's because I've not got a marketing brain, but I can't understand why you would still... Maybe they had a plan B, and it was like, if something leaks, we'll put something else into that slot, so, for the big reveal.
Yeah.
And then we've still got like a backup slot, which we'll use for Heresy. So maybe it's that, I don't know. But it is what it is, isn't it?
They cancelled the whole thing, though. That's, you're right in that assessment. but it's the fact they cancelled the whole thing. So
Mm.
either there was nothing else that was going to be a big enough deal, and everything else has just been shown off, say
Yeah.
like the Trader Night and things, and maybe over the next day or two, next week or so, we'll get some more nice reveals of.
Maybe basically they're going to have to like redo a load of the marketing launch material.
Mhm.
And that extra week is basically the time that they need to get everything through production and ready.
Yeah.
That wouldn't surprise me. I mean, I've heard through the grapevine before about, leaks causes the marketing teams a huge amount of pain because they have to redo loads of work and change things around and whatnot, which I can fully believe.
Mhm. Mhm.
I don't, yeah.
I'm just cheesed off. I have to
I
wait
mean,
another
in
week.
all fairness to them, they got a lot closer to the release date this time than they did with Age of Darkness. I mean, that that got out into the wild well over a year before it actually got announced.
Oh, yeah, that got boring after a while. As much
Mm.
as I love Heresy, and I love Heresy, to be honest with you, waiting for that
Yeah,
for such a long time, I was just like, you know what, I'm not even fussed anymore.
yeah, it was a long way, yeah. But anyway, let's not retread that ground. Let's talk about incredibly big shoulder pads and the actual meat and potatoes of this episode, which is the Saturnine box set. So, oh gosh, where do we start? There's so much to chew out here. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to start with a little bit from the actual contents. Now, through a bit of image manipulation and looking at my computer screen from across the other side of the room, was more or less able to transcribe the full contents list bar one word. So a couple of highlights from this. So it says, this box contains Warhammer, the Horus Heresy, Age of Darkness, 356 page, take a deep breath, Jay, 3rd edition hardback rulebook.
Nah.
Oh, 3rd edition. I'll tell you one thing. Right, I've heard rumours that it's a 2.5.
Yeah, I understand edition terminology that they're not going to call this 2.0 or D&D revised or something like that. They're going to want to show it as a brand new iteration.
Yeah.
But I hope, and I'm saying this calmly and correctly without using my favorite 4-letter words, I hope it's 2.0 revised.
Yeah.
Rather than a brand new game system.
I've not got the patience for having to get a new set of books. And we've had 4 campaign books.
Yeah.
And a bunch of army list books. They better not sunset those. I will not be pleased if that's the case.
I completely agree, because one of them only came out like 4 months ago.
Yeah. It was that Martian Civil War, wasn't it?
Yeah. How long has people, as people maybe know, and as obviously I'm more of a Space Marine player. I understand and love all the other armies, but I'm predominantly the concept this is a Astartes business. But even I was chuffed to see the Martian Civil War concept.
Yeah.
And if it is the kind of thing that they do with standardized bigger games, Warhammer 40k and AOS, where when the new edition comes, these all get taken out the back like Old Yeller and shot, then everybody's going to be annoyed because you're putting the clock back, and we're all going to now have to wait for new Libras, new Mechanicum, new Solar Ox, new Black Shields, new Knight Errant, new Militia, new Demons of the Rune Storm. I don't think I'm missing any, but that's quite... Custodians as well.
Yeah.
That's quite a lot to get through. And if they're going to continue a 3-year cycle, wow.
Yeah, they can get in the sea if that's the approach. I have how would you put this? I have a optimistic interpretation of everything that's happening with Saturnine based on the leaks, yeah?
Yeah.
And I hope it's true, because if the whole thing's getting redone again, it's going, for goodness sake.
Definitely. I mean, I'm just going to take it from my point of view, in the sense of the rules itself. So I've been playing Warhammer for well over 20 years, roughly, give or take, right? And as editions have come on, certain things have been tweaked, certain things have changed. Obviously, when they hit 8, 9, and 10 of 40k, they completely changed everything. Heresy at least stayed closer to what 7th edition was. The classic concept of your stat lines, you move, you shoot your weapon skill. I don't really think I have the brain anymore as I'm getting older to learn a new rule set if they completely change how reactions work, how movement works, how this works and that works. I'm not that old, but even I'm looking at it going, no, come on, seriously, just stick to what you know, stick to the basics here.
The thing is, Heresy 2.0 fundamentally is a really good game, I think. I think it's one of the better war games, as in tabletop war games, with terrain, placeable terrain, that Games Workshop's ever done.
Yeah. I would agree. I would say personally, if we used a percentage, I would say it's at least a good 95 to 98%. Few
That's
things need
quite cool.
tweaked,
Yeah.
but let's not lie. We've talked about them, you and I, many times.
Mhm.
Overwatch reactions, or sorry, Interceptor reactions is one
Yeah.
of them. So
Dreadnoughts, last
yeah,
cannons.
exactly. So there's a few things. Nothing's perfect, but I would at least
Yeah.
give it a good old 95 to
Oh
98.
yeah. It gets a lot more right than it gets wrong.
Yeah, yeah,
And I can see why they didn't want to show that, because that, as we've just discussed for the last 5 minutes, that makes a lot of people quite nervous, I think.
definitely.
Now, the rest of it, in terms of the content, I think is pretty standard fare. There's a couple of things I'll just point out. It still includes the scatter dice, and it still includes blast markers and templates. So boom weapons and flamers aren't going to change.
Hmm.
It's not going to change by 40k. So that's continuity. Good. They're including objective tokens, which is good.
Hmm.
Now, the plastic tactical mleh is a one word that I couldn't interpret, but I think we figured out that these are reaction tokens, aren't they?
Yeah, I think they've maybe give them a new name like order or orders
Reaction
tokens,
order,
but I
yeah.
think they're honestly, I think reactions is a really good way to work it compared to CP and stuff from other game
Yeah.
systems. So I do hope they keep it and don't overcomplicate it.
But what it was, there was a product, wasn't there, with Heresy 2.0, which was called Warhammer the Horus Heresy Reaction Tokens and Cards.
Yeah, yeah,
And if you look at that, I think it was a limited edition one. If you look at that, there is an exclamation mark, which is the same put on Hearsay.
yeah,
There's a
yeah,
proper photo. So I think they're including that to help people keep track of reactions in the game.
which isn't a bad thing
No.
sometimes.
That gives me some cautious optimism that the game's not changing perhaps as much as third edition might suggest.
Yeah, we're also getting, according to the what we saw, we're also getting a quick reference guide, which is
Yeah.
quite nice, and a new transfer sheet. So something
Yeah.
completely different, even compared to the command squad.
That,
So I
yeah.
am looking forward to seeing that. One of the major things they haven't
Mm.
shown off yet, even on Hearsay, is an image of that or even a corner of it to show maybe the difference.
And we do like a good transfer sheet, don't we?
Oh yeah,
Let's move on to, we've got quite a way into this episode. Let's actually talk about our miniatures properly now,
yeah,
because that's the big ticket item, isn't it?
oh yeah.
So, wow, good. Right, so this is what it contains. One Saturnine Praetor, one Centurion in Mark II power armor, Crusade armor, one Saturnine Dreadnought, one, now, something like an Arake or a Arachnes or something, quad accelerator platform. That's a quad gun.
I'm just going to call it the Hydra.
Yeah, well, that's a hard, yeah. And that was, when we were talking about in our last episode what the Imperial Armor Volume 1 second edition book was in the video trailer. Well,
Yeah,
that
yeah,
contained the Hydra platform, and that's a reference to this. It's a twin-barreled version of the accelerator autocannon in the standard Sakaran tank
yeah, yeah.
as a fixed position. That's pretty cool.
It is. I think we discussed it before. You were saying they must have changed the name from Hydra to Arachna something to
Yeah.
keep the spidery theme going, not the tarantula for the sentry turrets.
Oh, yeah, true, yeah. And they always like to make something new, don't they?
Hmm.
6 Saturnine Terminators, so this is like many Retro Hammer fans' wet dream. The boys with the pauldrons are back. 40, that is, Legionnaires in Mark II powered armor, so that is going to be the equivalent of the Mark VI and Mark III tactical squad sets. That's fantastic, that is. And then 2 sets of disintegrator weapons. Ooh.
Yeah, I won't say a brand new gun. I'll say brand new sprue.
Yeah, correct. Yes. You chose your words very correctly and carefully there.
Yeah, and by the looks of it, this was something we also discussed that they show off on the back of the box.
Mm.
The Mark II Arm Warrior, who's holding the disintegrator, he has the term Veteran Legionary, and he has the elite icon on his shoulder pad.
Oh, does he?
Yeah, if you look at the picture on Hearsay,
Yeah.
you can clearly see it's not one of the ones that's sort of fully filled in. It's a single line cross on the yellow part of the
Oh,
right shoulder pad.
yeah.
So
Great
he's a
spot.
veteran. He's the elite
Yeah.
choice, not the troop choice. So it's not a special weapon. Or sorry, it's not a
Yeah.
the troop support. It's not a. I don't think they're going to be in a tactical support squad.
No, that's a great spot, that. For the viewers who perhaps aren't familiar with this, disintegrator weapons are a thing in Heresy 2.0 for the Legion. This isn't to do with the Custodes Estrathic weapon series. There are a handful of Legionnaires who can access disintegrators, and disintegrators do count at what they sound. They vaporize living targets very quickly. They slice through even the toughest armor and have the instant death special rule. At the moment, is it right? I think Praetors might have access to pistols and disintegrators. A Vigilator, a Centurion grade sniper, can take a disintegrator, and then Moritats have the option, if they're extremely brave, this is, to take a pair of one or two disintegrator pistols. There are some disintegrator weapons there in rules, but there isn't a model in Heresy. But of course, where do disintegrators come from? Well, there's some lovely throwbacks to the earliest days of Rogue Trader, first edition 40k in this, because the original Space Marine model, LEO2, Leto, when that was reimaged as the Imperial Space Marine, the 2016 anniversary miniature,
he was 2016,
he came with his own rules, and he was armed with a disintegrator gun and disintegrator pistol. And as the viewers will now be seeing, we've got this handsome chap on screen, and I will draw their attention to the underbarrel weapon, so not the bolt part of the weapon, but the copper-coloured perforated barrel at the front. That's a disintegrator bit. And also at the back, you can see this almost like a flower-shaped round magazine or power pack. And if we look at the Hearsay guy, you can see perforated barrel and like this circular power pack at the back.
Every time I think of that magazine, for lack of a better term, it reminds me of the World War I French weapon, the Chauchat.
That's actually a great comparison, that, yeah.
Yeah, that wasn't a very good gun, though, so let's hope the disintegrator works better.
It was a good effort for its time.
Oh, yeah, but prone to jamming, which didn't really help when the horde of Germans, I suppose, were running towards them, trying to take Verdun.
Perhaps not quite as good as, say, the Lewis gun, but it was a good effort under the circumstances. But yeah, disintegrators are back. And that nicely segues us into, let's talk about the Saturnine Dreadnought.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the Stomp from last week, yeah. And we called it that this was a new Dreadnought. It's not Leviathan. And sure enough, the prophecy has been fulfilled.
Definitely called it.
Yeah, and here we've got this chungus of a unit, this super Dreadnought, the Saturnine Dreadnought. Now, it looks at least as big as Custodian Telemon, doesn't it?
It definitely does, yeah. I think maybe, obviously, they did make reference to, is it something like a Redemptor? I think they're maybe saying scale-wise, it's as tall as a Redemptor.
Yeah.
Because that is a large piece of kit.
Yeah.
It's going to be fun to see when somebody gets hold of the Mini. I'm hoping somebody does a scale. So we see Castor Ferrum, Contemptor, Custodian, Redemptor, this thing.
Yeah, the only question mark at the moment is, I don't know if I've seen a size comparison, because it does actually say 100% size actually next to it. It's got the little magnifying glass. Have you seen that?
Yeah.
So let me have a little look, Ski. Let me find the image. So it's about twice the height of the Praetor. So I don't know. What size base is it on? Is it on a...
That looks like at least a 90.
Is it on the smaller of the oval bases? I wonder.
I don't think so. If you look at the picture of them, all the minis on the terrain in the background, it looks like if it's not a 90, it's at least a 120.
I'll tell you what size that is. Yeah, good spot. It is round, yeah. Ignore what I thought there. So I think it is the same size as a base that the Telemon ships with, which is a 100mm base.
Oh.
Yeah, just having a look at mine at the moment. So 100mm round. It's a big beastie.
Yeah. I'm actually going to check here while we're discussing this. I'm going on to the GW web store and I'm going to find the Redemptor or any of its variants and check and see what size base come with.
That's a good idea.
If they're on 90s and that's on the Telemon, as you say, that's on 100, then wow.
You do that. I'm going to grab my Telemon. Right. Okay. So I've got my Telemon and I've checked it, and that is a 100mm base. So I think it's a 100, which will put the Saturnine Terminators on 50s.
Yeah, they definitely look like 50s, especially when you see the one on the box art next to the Mark II Tactical Legionnaire, and he's on a 32.
This is massive, and they decided that Saturnine means more than just one Terminator suit. There's a Dreadnought pattern to go with it. I like it. I do like it. Its proportions feel right, and it's massive and heavy and powerful, and it's still a fairly Dreadnought-sized Dreadnought head, which is quite a nice offset to its hugeness.
Yeah. I'm on the fence, personally. I want to see the Mini, both the Saturnine Terminators and the Saturnine Dreadnought. And I also want to see, just like we talked about in the last episode, how they're going to put these into the narrative. Are they going to be mothball equipment? Are they going to be artifice that everybody now has access to? Or, it's going to be interesting to see how they put them in. Are they going to be, as we talked about, is it going to be a reference just like they did when they released 2.0? Is the Mark 6 going to be basically RTB-01? And obviously they've went back and did some homages to exosuits.
Yeah.
And are they going to say that this was a experimental form of suit that has been rushed through production? Or is it going to be mothball like the Kratos that they've brought back?
That's a really good question. And I don't know the answer to that. I'm not even sure what it would be.
Especially considering they're only in squads of 3.
I mean, they're clearly big, more substantial than regular Terminators. And then looking at their armament, I get the feel for there is a different tactical role, which, coming back to our friend, the Saturnine Dreadnought, I just wanted to comment a bit. So, how I was talking about disintegrator weapons?
Yeah.
So weapons loadout's got 3 weapon systems. It's got a large plasma-type weapon in the left arm. It's got a pair of chest guns, which look like disintegrators, like the veteran legionary is carrying. And then the right arm is a twin-barreled gun. And although the angle's a bit hard to see...
it does look like some sort of disintegrator.
It does, yeah.
And you can also see the circular thing at the back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's, I don't know what they call it, a heavy disintegrator or a disintegrator cannon.
Yeah.
First, I think it's cool because they're doing something new. Secondly, I think this is really telling us to what tactically this box is going to add to the Heresy game without necessarily changing much.
Yeah.
So a little bit of a Rules 101 for the viewers just to frame the context of this observation. So in Heresy 2, disintegrators are sort of short to medium range weapons. There's a pistol and a rifle at the moment. They're strength 5, AP 2, and they have gets hot and instant death. So it's a really risky weapon because if you gets hot, well, walloped. But they are really deadly against elite infantry and Terminators. And while strength 5 is a bit low to be useful against dreadnoughts, if you do get a lucky hit with a 6, that dreadnought takes D3 wounds from one shot. And seeing all the disintegrator weapons in this set, everything seems to be armed in a way that will be great for dealing with heavy infantry and dreadnoughts. Yeah?
Yeah.
Because, the Saturnine, on the leaked photos on the cover, the Saturnines, they've got fists, but they've also got what looks like a twin-barreled cannon. And I think that's a smaller version of the disintegrator cannon the Dreadnought's got.
Yeah.
So they're armed with disintegrators. And then the alternate Saturnine has got a Saturnine-sized version of the plasma cannon or heavy plasma weapon that the Saturnine Dreadnought's got.
Yeah.
So again, they're loaded up with weapons for dealing with Terminators, elite infantry, and dreadnoughts. I think one of the most persistent and most prominent issues people have with Heresy 2.0 is dealing with dreadnoughts, and in particular, Contemptor dreadnoughts.
Yeah.
And my hunch is the models in Saturnine are, in effect, they are the missing counter unit to dreadnoughts for Heresy. And I think, touch wood, and perhaps hope that's what they've designed these units to do without rewriting perhaps much of the rules to rebalance the game.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see once we finally get a good look at that book. But yeah, that does sound like it's to add in, as I say, a brand new sprue for a pre-existing weapon, but then to create newer iterations of that weapon. It's obviously there to combat things that are on the field that maybe people have trouble with.
Yeah, and the thing that I think is top of people's trouble list, well, there's 2 things. There's Contemptor dreadnoughts in large numbers and reaction fire from last cannons, particularly heavy support squads, and reaction fire in general. So it'd be interesting to see if they do anything with reactions.
Yeah.
Try address people's... I'm not sure on reactions. I'm a bit more on the fence about that. Well, in terms of like return fire actions, I think a lot of people say that they think heavy support squads are too hard. If they're armed with like things like multi-melts and las cannons, are too hard to fight with tanks. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the tank will shoot them and they'll shoot back and the tank probably comes off for worst. From a tactical point of view, general military tactics, for mechanized armored warfare, number 1 rule of tanks, don't attack anti-tank infantry. Yeah. The infantry have the advantage, but...
Tell that to my brother-in-law who runs 2 Vindicator laser destroyers shot both of them at my World Eater Heavy Support Marines, and I didn't even get a chance to do reactions because they just ran off.
Oh, well,
I tell a lie. I did get a reaction, and all I did was scratch the paintwork. Then they ran off the board.
well, there you go.
And that is why I now run, to annoy him, 3 Contemptor Dreadnoughts as a
Oh,
Talon.
harsh. That's harsh.
Oh, yes.
That's a little bit of my brain speculating there. And in addition, with the inclusion of the disintegrator weapons, are they putting something in there to really give a strong counter to Dreadnought spam?
Yeah.
Don't know. We will see.
Yeah, no, definitely.
In a way, it's a bit of a shame it came out this way because we've seen these not so good photos and, so-so photos. It's still showing us some really interesting stuff. But new edition, question mark as to how much of a new edition it is. Because if what I said about introducing these new units to balance the meta, they might not need to redo any of the army lists.
That's what I'm hoping for.
Mm,
I'm hoping that all the books do not become redundant and we don't need new levers and they're going to keep the pre-existing black books.
yeah.
Because you don't want to feed into the people who say that, the people who are just going to whinge and say, oh, 3-year cycle, more chance to milk more money.
Yeah.
My book has become redundant.
I mean, we like buying the miniatures, don't we? And we like buying new rules or new content. What we don't like so much is retreading ground that's already been done in recent times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A case in point for anybody who does know would be the Age of Sigmar faction, the Lumineth, who got 3 army books, I think, in the span of a year and a half, because they released one when they got released. They released a second when they got their second wave with a fancy box. And then the new edition came out and they got a new edition.
I mean, that's just preposterous, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not funny anymore.
No.
Yeah, that's how you upset your customer base.
I think that's the polite way of putting it.
Yeah. So, yeah, we'll see.
Mm-hmm.
And Mark IIs, I mean, fantastic. Yeah. Brilliant.
Oh, I can't wait. I need at least 80. Well, I've got 3 armies to pass them through, don't I? So I've got to throw Mark II in everywhere.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm so looking forward to those Mark IIs. There's so much pent-up Mark II demand out there. They've been waiting for them, so it's going to be great to see them. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure the Horus, our podcast, is chuffed because they've been saying Mark IIs since 2.0, and every week they were proved wrong, and finally they were right.
They were, yeah. Bless them.
But not only that, we see something in this box that's going to be something for the future that's hidden in plain sight, which is a rapier battery.
We do. Okay, so let's now move off that because we've got to keep it fairly brief, otherwise I'm never going to get this edited in time. Let's move on to other things that have appeared on the Hearsay website then for the last, say, 10 minutes or so, yeah?
Yeah.
So, right, as you mentioned it, metal boxers. Go on then. Your brother-in-law spotted this, so I'll let you talk about it.
Yeah, so I'll give a shout out to Gav. He's also of the Legion of Two. He sent me a message and he says to me, Jay, have you seen the Hearsay? And I was like, yeah, it's a rhino, I think, and it has a footprint because it's standing on it. And he says to me, no, look closely. And then he sent me a picture from Beta Garmin of the side view of the new gen. He calls them the Mark 6 rapier batteries because they were standing beside 2 Mark 6 Marines.
Yeah.
And he then zoomed in and said, it's the front wheel section, front large wheel tread section of the rapier battery he's standing on.
Yeah.
And that led me to remember that GW usually don't release, for lack of a better term, a fancy tactical rock of something unless it's a kit that is going to exist.
Yeah, or something that they make in their model range.
Exactly. Case in point, 8th edition Gilliman. He came out and there was a dead Chaos Marine in the newer version of the classic armor. And everyone was like, that looks amazing. But we still had the older 4th, 5th edition kit. And then it got released a couple of months later.
And as the viewers can now see, it is indeed exactly as your brother-in-law spotted. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I'm glad he didn't say to me, I bet you I can tell you what this is.
Yeah.
Or I would actually...
You'd have been probably 10 Mark IIs down already, wouldn't you? So we can expect those soon. And that's something we'd commented on, was it early last year, when we talked about, we spotted them in Beta Garmin. And of course, they'd also, before then...
They were in Legions. Yeah.
Legions Imperialis, yeah. So get ready for rapiers.
Yep. Just like they did with the Ursulax. If
Yeah.
it's in the tiny, it's going to be big, and vice versa.
Yeah.
We saw the Ursarax in the tiny box when they released all the Mechanicums, and then the Ursarax came out in 28 mil.
Cool. Yeah.
So rapiers and tarantulas, as we've seen. Now, we haven't seen the tarantulas have guns instead of the missiles, but I guarantee they're somewhere. They have to be.
Yeah.
Let's be
But
honest, it's just
yeah.
a tip of a sprue change. That's it,
Yeah, no, that is coming, absolutely. So, yeah, rapiers, although not in this box set, but is coming, yeah. Then the next one was Buckle Up, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah.
So this is a combi melter in a tactical hold pose. Well, not tactical pose, like a
Resting.
command pose, with a strap, as you can see, and the strap gives something away. Now, from the commonly available leak photos, you can't deduce what this is, but from the other leak photos, which aren't commonly in public circulation at the moment, we think this is part of the Mark II Centurion, don't we?
Yeah. All 2.0, well, I'll use that term loosely, new generation Heresy weapon options. It's the melee in the right, it's the shooty in the left, which is a flip of original, which was vice versa. We can see from the leaked photos that the Centurion is carrying a massive power maul, and his other hand looks to be down beside his cape.
Yeah.
Given the pose of this combi weapon, and then take a look at, for example, the Loyalist Company Champion from Forge World.
Do you know the one I think of is the Death Guard Praetor in Artificer Armour?
Yes, him as well, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of similarity there. And then there's a few other bits as well, but yeah, I think that's probably what that is. Oh, and then, as you pointed out, you can see in the bottom right corner, there's a little bit of terrain, and in the bottom left corner, there's something swooshy, like a cloak.
Yeah.
The Centurion House. So,
which is, it's good and bad at the same time. I'm glad to see it. I guarantee on the bit sites, people will go nuts for this, for seekers, for veterans, for even tactical sergeants, and which is fantastic. But at the same time, it's kind of sad because I was hoping when I first looked at it and I didn't pay attention to the edges of the frame, I saw it and I went, oh my God, a new upgrade sprue. I thought it was going to be maybe a new special weapon upgrade sprue for the Legions, but no, it's for the Centurion. But either way, it's nice to see.
It's nice to see. But yeah, so that's really cool. So that's Buckle Up. And then the last miniatures bit is Health and Safety Nightmare. Looks like there's even more plasma on the way. No idea which unit can take this, but it looks super dangerous to someone. Well, obviously pointy end towards the enemy. So it looks like a plasma blaster, similar to what Terminators can carry as a support weapon. 70, so it's from a bigger kit. Now, I don't think this is a weapon for the Saturnine Terminators because their arm guns look larger, i.e. the assumed disintegrators and the plasma weapon. What I think this is one of the secondary weapon options for the Saturnine Dreadnought on its chest mounts. And a plasma blaster will be, I think, about the same weapon category as like a melt gun or a disintegrator, something like that.
Yeah.
So that's what I think that is.
Yeah, originally I disagreed with you, and I said I actually thought it was an underslung weapon for one of the Terminators, because in my mind I was like, yes, they're quite long disintegrators, they do look massive. And I looked at them and went, well, maybe there's just varied sizes of underslung weapons, just like the special and the heavy weapons. An autocannon's bigger than a heavy bolter or a plasma cannon, that kind of thing. But the more and more I do look at it, yeah, it does appear to be one of the, looks like it probably is from the Saturnine Dread.
Yeah.
Cool stuff, that. So there's going to be a few options. I think that in all likelihood, as we've seen before, it wouldn't surprise me if after this box comes out, they release a separate Saturnine Dreadnought and a separate Saturnine Terminator kit, and they have more weapon options.
Oh, yes, exactly like they did with the Contemptor.
Yeah.
Just imagine the Heresy Thursdays that we're going to get. If Heresy Thursdays 3.0 copies 2.0's Heresy Thursdays, we're going to get months of new Sakarans, rapiers, tarantulas, maybe even things we haven't even seen before.
Yeah.
I hope so.
Likewise. But I think that more or less wraps up. I mean, there's a few more bits, like little text bits on the Hearsay sites. I mean, the 2 and 11, we're now hearing that D18 is just a 20 with 2 and 11, scratched off 2 and 11, the Destroyed Legions. I just think they're playing on memes there.
Yeah.
More Dreadnought news. Hearing Dreadnoughts are getting vehicle stats again makes us definitely think that the Throwing Marines thing is true. Makes a lot of sense. I think that's guff.
I don't think they're going to turn dreadnoughts back into vehicles. That'll be a regressive step in the rules. It'll make the whole game worse.
No,
Listen
I
up, soldiers. Rumour has it that characters can now issue orders to units, like in Legions Imperialis. If true, could be a really interesting mechanic for adding even more flavour to Legions. I don't know.
That one just sounds to me like characters can do something, but I'm hoping it's just tying it into the idea that a character can give extra reactions but doesn't need a certain rite of war to do it.
At the moment, characters in units in Heresy, all officers do in effect is confer a high leadership stat. They gives protection against certain abilities. So, for example, Spite of the Legion. If you have a leader, you can't be affected by that. And they have war gear options that set them apart. As long as they don't add too much complexity, maybe. But yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a topic for a future episode because I completely agree that while a rule set needs to be intricate enough that you don't get people arguing over small things, you don't want it so intricate that people spend a fortnight and half a dozen rule books trying to figure out, can this person do this?
Yeah, and that's one of the criticisms of 40k 10th edition, isn't it? The overly complex nature of stratagems and and all
for
that.
Something that they tried to I'll rephrase that. For something they designed that was simplified so that kids could get into it a bit easier than standard 7th edition, 7.5 Heresy and things like that. The minute you get into stratagems, CP, and the cards, that's it. They're done.
I think they've lost their way on 40k.
Yeah.
That's just my opinion, but a lot of people we're not going to get into 40k, but I think those are all discussions for another time. So fantastic. Well, we need to wrap it up now, otherwise I'm not going to get this edited to go live tomorrow evening. But wow, what an intense week in the Heresy. Well, what an intense 2 weeks, but this last week in particularly intense. I mean, what more do we say? 2025 is going to be a massive year for the Heresy, a new starter set. Let's just hope and keep touching that wood that this is a fine-tuning of the rules and not a wholesale rewrite, and that don't outdate everyone's army books and campaign books.
Oh, definitely.
So
let's just hope that this starts strong and it keeps going strong for the point of view of the edition, but also the next couple of weeks. It has been a frantic week. Let's hope they actually keep it going with a bit of hearsay and keep that hype. The need to keep the hype going.
I like the hearsay. I think it's fun. Some people, it's definitely not their cup of tea, but I'm enjoying it.
I'll drop one more quick thing before we go. This was something my wife said to me when she saw the weapon platform, and she asked me what it was. I said, it's a Hydra, or it used to be a Hydra. And she said, really? I said, yeah. And she says, who's the picture on the hearsay? I says, it's Alfarius. And she went, uh-huh.
Oh, that's very good. Very good.
Yeah. She I was quite chuffed when she did that. Right. I was like, I know you play the game, but I'm so proud of you.
Yeah, well, I think that's an honorary mention there for kudos points, along with your brother-in-law.
Yeah.
Your wife spotting the meme within the meme.
Definitely.
Fantastic. Good. Right, well, there we go. Our initial thoughts on Saturnine, Hearsay, Leaks, and what we think this new box set may herald for the Horus Heresy Age of Darkness. Thank you ever so much for watching and listening, everyone. I hope you found this an interesting, entertaining, and thought-provoking discussion. As always, please do share your thoughts and observations in the comments.
Yep, we'll see you again.
Will do, yeah. Thank you all for watching, and bye-bye.
Bye-bye.